On December 24th at 3:17 local time, a Ukrainian FP-2 heavy kamikaze unmanned aerial vehicle obliterated a Russian military command center in occupied Donetsk Oblast. 47 Russian officers wiped out in a single devastating strike. And that's all the information I have at the moment, but dozens of casualties are estimated. However, these questions are echoing in everyone's mind. Had Ukraine developed a weapon that could change the entire equation of this war? And why were Russian generals scrambling within hours to evacuate command centers on the Eastern Front? 47 kilometers behind Russian lines, inside a reinforced concrete structure dating back to the Soviet era, Colonel General Viktor Sokolov was hunched over tactical maps illuminated by harsh LED work lamps. This wasn't supposed to be a vulnerable location. Walls a meter thick. Electronic warfare systems jamming Ukrainian signals within a 12-kilometer radius. Panzer S, one air defense batteries positioned at 300-meter intervals around the perimeter. So, when described like this, it must sound very secure. However, Colonel Dmytro Kovalenko, operating from a covert position in Ukrainian-controlled territory, had been tracking this target for 17 days. In other words, that command center where the Russians thought they were safe was actually in the crosshairs of the Ukrainian army all along. The FP-2 drone was unlike anything that had dominated the skies before. A 200-pound beast carrying a 100-kilogram warhead, it functioned less like nimble FPV quadcopters and more like a precision-guided cruise missile. Its AI-enhanced navigation system could fly pre-programmed routes up to 600 miles, adjusting autonomously to avoid detection patterns in Russian air defense networks. At 2:31 a.m., Kovalenko initiated the launch sequence. The FP-2 lifted from its concealed position, climbing to 4,000 meters before leveling into cruise profile. Its electric propulsion system rendered it nearly silent, a ghost slicing through frigid December air at 140 kilometers per hour. Russian radar operators detected nothing. The drone's radar-absorbent composite materials made it effectively invisible. Inside the command center, Sokolov coordinated artillery strikes against Ukrainian positions near Vuhledar. 32 officers crowded the operations room, majors studying displays, colonels arguing over ammunition allocations, communications specialists maintaining encrypted links with units spread across 180 kilometers of front line. None of them noticed the threat descending from above. At 3:16:52 a.m., the FP-2's onboard processors identified the target building through thermal imaging. The drone entered its terminal dive, accelerating to maximum velocity. 3 seconds. A junior lieutenant glanced up, perhaps hearing something, perhaps sensing the infinitesimal change in air pressure that precedes catastrophic violence. 2 seconds. Sokolov's hand froze mid-gesture above the tactical map. 1 second. The 100-kilogram warhead struck the roof at a precise angle, calculated to penetrate concrete before detonation. The explosion didn't just destroy the building, it erased it from existence. The blast wave traveled outward at 7,000 meters per second, turning reinforced walls into projectiles and human bodies into vapor. Windows 400 meters away shattered simultaneously. The mushroom cloud rose 200 meters into pre-dawn darkness, visible to Ukrainian observation posts 17 kilometers distant. 47 Russian officers died instantly. Colonel General Sokolov, his deputy commanders, the entire operational staff responsible for coordinating Russian offensive operations across southern Donetsk Oblast. The silence that followed felt like a held breath across the entire front line. Russian communications channels erupted into barely controlled chaos within minutes. A major general at the rear logistics base in Mariupol, his voice climbing registers of barely suppressed panic. Vostok Command is gone. Completely gone. I have no visual. I have no radio contact. The reply came after 7 full seconds. Stand by. Confirm targeting data. There's nothing left to target, the Major General responded, his words edged with horror. The entire grid reference is crater and rubble. At Patriot Park Exhibition Center on Moscow's western suburbs, headquarters for Russia's elite Rubicon drone unit, the emergency response meeting convened at 5:47 a.m. Moscow time. Colonel Sergei Budnikov sat across from 3 generals whose faces carried the gray pallor of men confronting an existential threat. The question wasn't whether Ukraine had developed a weapon capable of striking deep behind Russian lines. The question was whether any Russian command facility was now safe anywhere within 600 kilometers of Ukrainian-controlled territory. General Alexei Lapin interrupted with barely restrained fury. That assessment just killed 47 of my officers. How many more experimental weapons will vaporize command posts before we take this threat seriously? Within 18 hours, satellite imagery showed Russian command units evacuating at least 14 forward positions across Donetsk, Luhansk, and Zaporizhzhia oblasts. The operational disruption was immediate. Units lost direct coordination with higher commands. Artillery strikes became less responsive. Tactical decisions that once took minutes now required hours. On social media, the strike ignited triumph in Ukrainian channels and shocked disbelief in Russian military forums. #FP-2. Strike trended globally within 4 hours, accumulating 2.3 million mentions. Dr. Michael Kaufman appeared on CNN at 9:47 a.m. Eastern Time, his expression grave. We're watching the fundamental transformation of warfare in real time. Command and control, historically protected by distance and defensive systems, is now perpetually vulnerable. The Russians face an impossible choice: concentrate their command elements for operational efficiency and risk strikes like this, or disperse them for survival and sacrifice coordination capability. Russian state media initially ignored the strike entirely. It wasn't until 2 p.m. Moscow time that RT published a brief statement acknowledging a Ukrainian terrorist attack, claiming minimal damage and no military casualties. The transparently false narrative convinced no one. Rybar, a prominent Russian military telegram channel with 1.2 million subscribers, posted at 3:34 p.m. Let's speak honestly. Ukraine struck a major command facility. Senior officers died. Our air defense didn't stop it. We need answers, not propaganda about terrorist attacks on civilian buildings. The post garnered 47,000 reactions within an hour. At the Russian Ministry of Defense on Frunzenskaya embankment, Defense Minister Andrei Belousov convened an emergency meeting at 6 p.m. Moscow time, the conference room thick with tension. "Explain to me," Belousov demanded, his voice deadly quiet, "how a Ukrainian drone flew 47 kilometers through our defensive zones and destroyed a command post that was supposed to be secure." The silence stretched like elastic approaching its breaking point. Colonel General Yevgeny Nikiforov cleared his throat. The FP-2 operates on principles our current systems weren't designed to counter. Its radar signature is minimal. The operators launched it from well outside our jamming radius using pre-programmed navigation that doesn't rely on GPS signals we can disrupt. That's a technical explanation, Belousov cut in sharply. I want solutions. Nikiforov's jaw muscles clenched. The reality, Minister, is that we're reactive. Ukraine keeps innovating faster than we can respond. The admission hung in the air like cordite smoke after an explosion. The economic asymmetry was staggering. Russia's Panzer S, one air defense system, cost approximately $15 million per unit. Ukraine's FP-2 could be produced for roughly $50,000. The arithmetic was brutal. Russia would bankrupt itself trying to defend every potential target, while Ukraine needed only penetrate those defenses occasionally to achieve strategic effects. For Russian officers serving in forward areas, the strike delivered an unmistakable message. Nowhere was safe. An intercepted phone call between a Russian battalion commander and his wife captured the anxiety. They got Sokolov. The entire command staff. One drone. How am I supposed to tell my officers they're safe when generals aren't even safe 50 kilometers behind the lines? But perhaps the most significant development came 72 hours after the strike. On December 24th, Ukrainian forces launched coordinated offensive operations across 3 sectors, where Russian command capabilities had been disrupted by the evacuation of forward headquarters. The attacks achieved breakthroughs that had eluded Ukrainian forces for months. Russian artillery responded with delays of 45 minutes to 2 hours. Ukrainian units advanced 3 kilometers in areas that had been static for 6 months. One drone strike had created operational opportunities across dozens of kilometers of front line. The FP-2 hadn't just killed Russian officers, It had temporarily paralyzed the command system that enabled coordinated defensive operations. Russian military leadership now faced decisions with no optimal solutions. Concentrate command elements for operational effectiveness and risk devastation from precision strikes. Disperse them for survival and sacrifice coordination. Pour resources into air defense systems that Ukrainian innovation consistently found ways to evade or accept perpetual vulnerability. The question wasn't just about one destroyed command post or 47 dead officers. The question was whether military forces built on centralized control could adapt quickly enough to survive in an era where $50,000 drones made billion-dollar defensive systems obsolete. Western intelligence agencies had been watching Ukraine's drone evolution with fascination. At a CIA briefing on December 23rd, analysts presented findings that sent ripples through the Pentagon. Ukraine isn't just building better drones, they're creating an entirely new paradigm. The FP-2 program cost Ukraine approximately $40 million. Russia has spent an estimated $2.3 billion upgrading air defenses in 6 months. And they still can't stop these strikes. The mathematics of modern warfare had inverted. Garage workshops in Kyiv were producing weapons that rendered billions in Russian military infrastructure obsolete. By December 26th, intercepted communications revealed Russian commanders refusing orders to establish forward command posts within 120 kilometers of the front line. One brigade commander's response captured the crisis. "You want me to set up in Makivka after what happened to Sokolov? My staff officers are requesting transfers. I have colonels threatening resignation." Ukrainian military intelligence released a calculated statement. "We have confirmed the elimination of Colonel General Viktor Sokolov. The FP-2 system can strike any Russian command facility within operational range. Distance from the front line no longer provides security. Reinforced bunkers no longer provide protection." Russian military bloggers responded with dark humor. "Remember when we worried about HIMARS reaching 80 kilometers? Now we're evacuating from 150 kilometers out. At this rate, the only safe command post will be in Siberia." On December 28th, Ukraine proved Sokolov wasn't isolated. Another FP-2 strike hit a logistics center in Luhansk, killing 14 officers. 8 hours later, a third strike destroyed an air defense command post near Mariupol. A leaked Pentagon assessment concluded, "Ukrainian drone innovations have created a strategic inflection point. Ukraine has achieved asymmetric dominance in a critical warfare domain." Satellite imagery told the story official statements wouldn't. Russian command vehicles appeared 200 kilometers behind previous positions. The Russian military had been forced into a distributed posture that sacrificed effectiveness for survival. On January 2, 2025, leaked Russian procurement documents revealed emergency funding: $890 million for mobile command systems, $1.2 billion for enhanced air defense, $340 million for hardened communications. Russia was pouring resources into problems Ukraine had created with a fraction of the investment. The drone that destroyed Viktor Sokolov's command post hadn't just killed 47 officers. It had killed the assumption that command centers could ever be truly safe again, and that changed everything.